We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.
Good morning, and welcome to the Friday edition of Free Association Radio. This is Robert Phoenix. It is a dark morning in many respects, based on a dark night, or what was a very dark night in Aurora, Colorado, in the darkness of the new moon. The dark night rose, and we have a major event, ladies and gentlemen, that's taken place, and it's going to be an event that is going to change your life irrevocably. I mean, your life is not going to be the same from this day forward. Because what happened last night in Aurora, Colorado, when James Holmes, not to be confused with John Holmes or Katie Holmes, went commando in a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. The events are still obviously unfolding from that, or the details are still unfolding from that event. Excuse me. And we're going to find out a lot more about James Holmes in the next 24 to 48 hours. Excuse me. I'm psychic, but I don't have to be psychic to tell you that he's going to be portrayed as a truther and as a conspiracy theorist. Now, there's a trend happening cinematic. Oh, by the way, we're going to have Johanna Demetrakas. She'll be on the show shortly, and we're going to be talking about crazy wisdom. And then the second hour, I talked with Jay Widner last night. And this is actually pretty mind-blowing because Jay and I talk about the dark night. And we talk about things like psychopathology as a virus and the Pluto and Scorpio generation. So my interview with Jay, which you'll hear in the second hour, is really pretty synced up with a lot of what is unfolding today. And also what's interesting is that the Naropa Institute is not far from Aurora, Colorado. So there's a lot of connections and a lot of cultural and symbolic synapses firing all over the place here. And by the way, you can't go to jail for firing synapses, at least not yet. So what's going to happen now is we're going to see Mr. Holmes, I'm sure, portrayed as a truther and a conspiracy. Now, the theme, the narrative of The Dark Knight is that America is bankrupt, society is decayed, there is challenge on a number of levels with the populace, corruption, and there is one person who stands up to the powers that be. And he's a villain. He's a bad guy. He's a bad guy in The Dark Knight. And Batman has to dispatch him, put him in his place. And so here we have life imitating art and vice versa. Programming that can be certainly predictive. It's pretty easy to see how, or it's fairly easy to predict how people are responding to all this. And the first place that people go to, again, with these tragic moments is pain, suffering, sympathy, the emotional chord gets played. And when the emotional chord gets played or strummed, then there's an opening. And then there is the problem, reaction, solution experience. People are in reaction mode now. There's a big bill in the UN, or the UN is putting together a resolution. It's already been put together. It's a resolution to unilaterally ban guns across the planet. And Barack Obama has been working on a move towards signing that gun ban treaty, which would then supersede the Constitution. And don't be surprised if that happens within the next 7 to 10 days. The other thing that we're going to see here as a result of all of this is increased security at not just airports, but movie theaters, malls, grocery stores. It's coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to come to your schools. Your children are going to have to walk through, our children are going to have to walk through security scanners. It's going to happen. And people are just going to let it happen because people are programmed. They're programmed. So one of the things we're going to be talking about today with Johanna Demetrakas is programming and soul notion, potentially, of what that's about. And did Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche consistently go after people's programming and break down their conditioning? And how effective was he as a result of it? And we'll talk about his methodology, which is Crazy Wisdom. And we're going to be talking about the film itself, which is a wonderful homage to a very compelling figure in the American spiritual landscape. So we have a caller here, and let's see if this is Johanna. Hello, is this Johanna?
Yeah, well, it's me, yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Actually, I have a cold, so I might cough a little bit, but otherwise I'm great. Thank you.
Oh, well, good. Well, thank you for coming onto the show. And we had a bit of a challenge over the last couple of weeks, but you're here, and the third time's a charm. So, again, I appreciate you hanging in there and joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the movie it's wonderful as a poetic homage to a very compelling individual, maybe the most compelling and important individual in terms of the American and the Western Buddhist landscape. And I just want to congratulate you on creating this visually stunning and rich film.
Oh, thank you. I actually consider it an homage to meditation practice through Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche.
So I don't know a lot about you, but I'm assuming that you have been a part of that community for quite a while. Is that true?
Yes, I have been, yeah. I met Chogyam Trungpa in 1971. And it was at a weekend seminar that he did called The Battle of Ego, which, was very attractive to me because it was a language I could understand, and even ideas I was very interested in. So that's when I first met him. And I did study with him for a long time. Although I never lived in Boulder, I was never like the inner circle kind of thing, but I studied with him, and I was especially interested in Dharma art. He was especially interested in film. I was a filmmaker. My husband, Baird Bryant, filmmaker. So there was that connection.
Yeah, he was, that comes in through pretty clearly in the film that he wasn't just solely interested in spiritual mechanics or religious mechanics. He had a great eye for art and very aesthetic, and he was very particular too about where he wanted certain things. Is that right?
Where he wanted certain things,
yeah,
like arrangements and stuff.
Yeah, like arrangements, colors on doors. Yeah.
Well, that all ties into understanding the Tibetan Buddhist understanding that the entire world is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is sacred. And I think most people feel that at some point in their lives. You don't have to be a Buddhist. There's some point in your life, maybe when you thought you were going to die or something like that, or maybe when you had a kid, or maybe when you hit a home run or something, where you just get this sense that the whole thing is beautiful. The whole thing is sacred. Did you ever have that feeling?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's very fundamental to the whole thing. I mean, if you actually feel that and it stays with you, it's really hard to desecrate the world, through aggression, through insult, through aggression, through, trying to take advantage of people or whatever,
Right, yeah.
So
absolutely.
he was always teaching that fundamental idea. And Dharma art was a great way to, because when people are making art, they tend to sort of slow down and look at things or feel things. And so he was using that as a way to say, okay, well, let's look at it this way, as sacred. And that can mean anything. It doesn't mean you always have to make beautiful, Tanka paintings or flowers or something, Sacred is, everything, including pain, and we have pain in the universe. We have pain in our country for a lot of different reasons, some of which you've been just talking about. So the whole idea is not sort of a goody-goody idea.
Right. So what we're talking about here is a sense of aliveness and a sense of conscious awareness in the moment. And I get by watching the film that was really what he was very much about. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, conscious awareness. That's why something is that appears to be as wacky as having a military, which is some people. A lot of the reviews of the film, not a lot, but a few took aim at him for his, girlfriends and drinking and stuff. It always blows my mind because what I think is really, really crazy and strange is the military or elocution,
Yeah.
Those things are really far out. But, the idea for the military was that the slogan for the particular military is victory over war.
This is the Tibetan military?
No, this is you saw the film. So in the film, the little section about creating a military. No, this is about Trungpa's military.
Okay, okay.
So victory over war means, for him, it meant taking the positive characteristics of a soldier, courage, loyalty, discipline, taking care of others, taking those very positive and very powerful aspects of a soldier and flipping around, instead of using them for war and aggression, using them for peace.
Right.
So that was the whole point of that.
Well, it's really fascinating. I thought that was a fascinating part of the movie because to set the stage, there is it comes about where there's a Dharma talk, and somebody says, "Can you talk about aggression?" And I guess this was in relation to the Vietnam War. Right. And then he says, "Well, let's talk about the aggression in this room," and just really turning it right back into the moment, and then creating this whole kind of sort of, I don't know what you would call it, like a mini army where people would actually wear uniforms and they would march. In a lot of ways, I mean, I thought it was really kind of brilliant because it got people to understand the mindset of the so-called other. And I thought that was really amazing.
Exactly. That's another huge thing. Thank you for getting that. That's another huge thing that happened. I didn't really see that happening at first until I actually did it for like a very short period of time, but I did it, and I'll never forget when I first marched in step, and it was such fun to suddenly be with other people that closely, that the rhythms of our bodies were the same.
Yeah.
And to do it well, not botch it. That was like one of the most fun things I did. Yeah. And I only did it a couple of times, but it was enough for me to see what he's doing there.
Yeah. Let's talk about the kind of the white elephant in the room as far as perhaps the critics go or people that are outside the circle and say this guy abused his privileges as a teacher. He slept with a number of his students. He drank profusely. He ate meat. This is always something that's sort of thrown in his direction. I know Bhagavan Das, and I spent some time with Bhagavan Das, and he told me some stories about Chogyam Trungpa, and there are stories that are they're a little edgy, to be honest with you, and
sure.
and yet all this was happening in a space of honesty. Everybody knew kind of what was going on. This wasn't like Muktananda, where he was shuttling people back and forth in his underground tunnel. This was all very above board. I mean, how do you address the critics when they bring this very kind of vulnerable piece up about him?
Well, it's not easy because we were not happy with the fact that he was drinking. I mean, when I say we, I mean the community at large. Anybody that really knew him or studied with him, and the people who worked with him all the time and were helped him a lot physically because he had that accident which left him paralyzed on the left side. It drove us crazy. But you don't. It's a complex answer because part of it is understanding, having some respect for who he is, and would you go up to the Dalai Lama, who I have enormous respect for, just enormous, and would you say to him, you should eat meat? It would really be good for you. I mean, would you do that?
Me?
Yeah.
Sure. Why not? Why not?
Would you?
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I don't have a lot of sacred cows, Johanna. So
you don't have a lot of what?
I don't have a lot of sacred cows. So yeah.
When you're around somebody who has given their lives and every minute of the day given their attention to either representing the Dharma the way the Dalai Lama does, under unbelievable conditions, politically and so forth, or like Trungpa, creatively presenting teachings of an enormously high level, there's a sense of like let them do what they do. I mean, I'm not in the position to tell him how to live his life. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to impose my values on him.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
He has proven to me that his entire dedication of his being, every single day, every minute, is simply to transmit the Dharma and to the teachings and to be kind to people and to wake them up and to support them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to impose my values on him. Of course, we tried to impose them. People who worked with him, I didn't directly, but people who worked with him, tried to water down the drinks and get on his case, But but he's left. He's got to do what he's got to do.
Right.
And so as far as the critics go, the sad thing for me is that they got so bent out of shape about his drinking and having girlfriends that they didn't see what was on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that would get in the way, but for sure. Did he ever talk about sexual molestation and sexual abuse in the temples in Tibet when he was a child?
He never talked about that to my knowledge. He did talk about one of the interesting things, and I think this is why one of the reasons he had such a great impact was when he first came over to America in 1971 and to England before that, he told people about the corruption in the monastic system of Tibet. On the one hand, Tibet was this great incubator, because it was way up there, and nobody could get to it, and nobody could pretty much get out of it. There was like a great incubator of philosophical thought and practice over 1,200 years before the Chinese did what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And also, of course, being an incubator, it was also prone to corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And there was corruption in the monastic system. And that was one of the things he discussed with, his students and the public and so forth right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it did was it de-romanticized. We have a tendency to romanticize Tibet because it is so beautiful and the people are so extraordinary and so forth.
Yeah.
And then, that's all we ever knew about Tibet in America, Shangri-La, right? So we romanticize it. And he cut through that right at the beginning. I don't ever remember him talking about sexual abuse particularly, but he certainly talked about abuse. Abuse, both financially, how they treated people, how they created hierarchies and so forth, just like any other government.
Bhagwan Das actually shared with me that he had spoken with him about that. So which is why I brought that question up.
Yeah.
So he's almost, in some ways, pardon the metaphor, he's like the spiritual atom bomb, really, that comes to the West. I mean, he drops into Scotland, right, and then he comes to America. And did he see America as being Shambhala? Was America his Shambhala?
Shambhala?
Yeah.
Well, I think it was the place for him to plant the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
It was the place for him to plant the seeds because people were ready for it. People were, it was the 70s. We were searching. Yeah. And so he thought it was a good place.
Yeah.
He later felt, in the late 70s, that the direction that America was going in, economically and aggression-wise and so forth, was so intense, and he basically predicted the political situation, the economic situation, the class breakdown, and the aggression in terms of wars abroad.
Yeah.
That's when he moved his center to Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Interesting, very interesting. What if you? I know this is a big question, but if you could briefly summarize what his impact has been on the Western spiritual landscape, how would you describe that?
Well, one of the reasons I made the film was because I feel that he is the person most responsible, not the only person, but the person most responsible for bringing Buddhism to the West. Mm-hmm. And I say Buddhism, not just Tibetan Buddhism. Of course, it's mainly Tibetan Buddhism. But I say Buddhism because before Trungpa, in America, for instance, there was a very small or elite group of people who were into Zen Buddhism, which had been in the country for some time. But it was, a tiny group of people. And when you think about when Trungpa began, and then he sort of rocketed around the country, and within a matter of like a year or two, there were like 10 centers, and in 4 years there were 60 centers, and by the time he died, there were well over 200 centers. Mm-hmm. And the way, because of how he taught in English brilliantly, there were immediately books and magazines and newspapers and this and that, and so he had a huge impact. Mm-hmm. So I think that is, his great legacy.
Yeah.
And now, of course, there are also great teachers of all kinds, Zen and Tibetan, and of course yoga has become huge, and it's become also another kind of meditation.
Right. Crazy wisdom is a very slippery slope. I mean, there's some people could accuse Charles Manson of having a form of crazy wisdom, and because there are a lot of people that would say that, and Charles Manson himself said, "Hey, I'm just breaking down your conditioning." I think in the right hands, crazy wisdom can be a very powerful tool, but in the wrong hands, it's incredibly manipulative. What are your thoughts on this style of teaching, and in some ways, how it's really kind of gone off-road for other spiritual teachers that have attempted this practice?
Well, I don't know who else has attempted the practice, but it isn't. You know, okay. Let me tell you what I know because I'm not an expert. But crazy wisdom, yes, is considered a form. I guess I don't know what the word should be. A form of teaching. However, crazy wisdom, it's not like you read a book and you learn how to be a crazy wisdom teacher and then you go do it. What it really is when a teacher has arrived at 24/7 attention to in the present moment, who lives in the present moment 24/7. Anybody who's totally in the present moment does not see things the way we usually see them, because when we're going through something, we see them through our prejudices, our desires, our disappointments. We see them through our personal lenses. Mm-hmm. We're not just there, right?
Yeah.
He's just there.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And it's not like he read a book on how to be a crazy wisdom teacher and then he decided he had the talent and the history to do it. He's just there.
Yeah.
And so the way he responds to things is different.
Got it. Lots of great scenes and footage, and one of the scenes that really struck me actually takes place early in the film, where there's somebody that knows him from Scotland and England. I believe he's an Aikido teacher now. And,
yeah, he's an incredible guy.
Yeah.
Dan Russell, yeah.
And the emotion that he still held for Trungpa, even all these years after his passing, was really profound.
It surprised me. I didn't see it coming. He's a very powerful guy. He's a Sorry, I have a call. He's a hypnotherapist. He's the first hypnotherapist to be accepted into the English science of medicine. Blah blah blah. He's a master Aikido teacher. He's a millionaire real estate owner. He's a very complex man. He's been married 4 times. He has 4 kids. He's an amazing person, and very powerful. And I had no idea that was going to come, that he would break down like that in his remembrance, because he hadn't seen Trungpa for a very, long. I mean, Trungpa's been gone for 25 years, and he hadn't seen him for probably 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
So something deep there came up.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Trungpa had this effect on many people and touching them at a very, very deep level. What is there a story or an event that took place that was memorable to you that didn't make it into the film?
Well, it might have made it into the extras.
Okay.
The DVD, if people are interested, is coming out with extras very soon. We just finished putting them together. Well, those stories, gosh, I don't really have one of my own to tell, about Trungpa. He asked me to make a film at one point. I had worked some on other films, and he wasn't really happy with certain films and how they came out. And I had a meeting with him in '83, and he asked me to make a film on Shambhala. And I didn't really know what Shambhala was at that time. I didn't know what kind of teaching it was. I didn't really know what it meant to create an enlightened society, and the possibility of it, and so forth. But I said yes, and then 4 years later he died. And I had no, I still had no idea, And how do you make a Shambhala film? What's a Shambhala film about? I'm not an educational filmmaker. I'm a documentary and theatrical filmmaker, And then I started studying Shambhala. I started actually studying the theory and the practice. And one day I woke up and said, well, that's my Shambhala film. I got to do it.
Got it. What are his sons like?
Very different from each other. One is a filmmaker. He has 3 sons. One, his middle son is severely autistic, and has been taken care of by the community. He's about 40-something now. His older son is the leader of the community, and is brilliant, and is also very dedicated to getting the teachings out, and very aware of what's going on in the universe now and how dark it is.
Yeah.
From another point of view, not the point of view you were talking about at the head of the program.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's focused on Shambhala. He's pushing people to really understand that we have to work together as people.
Yeah.
And the other son's a very good filmmaker. He's made a film called Tulku, which is about his own struggle with being recognized as a Rinpoche, mm-hmm. and not wanting to, not being able to, not picking up that mantle and going with it. He's a very interesting, smart guy and a really good filmmaker. That film was on Canadian Broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes back to India, and he follows the traces of when his early learning. And anyway, it's a good film. So those are his two sons.
Mm-hmm. That's got to be quite a legacy to live up to, being Trungpa's son and also being recognized as a Tulku. That's a lot of pressure,
isn't it?
Yeah,
he
for
thought
sure.
So.
Yeah, I can see that.
But he's a brilliant guy, and he's very, very, he's not, it's not like he's throwing it all away. He's in it, and he loved his father, but he, his own life is not about being a teacher.
Mm-hmm. What was Trungpa like as a father?
Probably was close, really, really close, but he was working all the time. I think he was a typical, in a sense, hard-working father who didn't have kids, but when he did spend time with his kids, it was incredibly valuable to them.
Mm-hmm. Great. So the movie is opening around the country. Were you just up here in Northern California and Berkeley and all those places?
Well, we're opening in Berkeley tonight. We opened in San Francisco last week, and at the Roxy, and that was great. We had a great crowd. Mm-hmm. And we're opening tonight at the Elmwood for a week.
I know the Elmwood. Yeah, I know the Elmwood. Nice little theater. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. I haven't been there. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, nice area. And Gordo's across the street from the theater makes a great burrito, by the way.
Oh.
if you're on the hunt for that.
Okay.
So is the DVD out yet for the film?
We've had previous DVDs out, and we're now gearing up, like I said, to put it out again with the extras. Mm-hmm. So if you don't mind, I'll make a plug, which is go to Alive Mind Crazy Wisdom, and that's our page, and you'll find out about when the DVD's coming out.
Alive Mind Crazy Wisdom. Okay, and crazywisdomthemovie.com is also the website, another website, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Any
future plans, future films?
My next film is about feminism.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the two big issues that have driven my life are feminism and Buddhism.
Okay, couple of isms. Well, Johanna, thank you for joining us today and hanging in there and coming back for the third go around and getting on the air. I really appreciate it. It's a great movie, and I really advocate people going out and seeing it because he's a very important figure, and you get some real insight into a particular slice of not just his life, but American life, cutting-edge spiritual American life, and people that were searching and looking for truth and answers amidst a very violent, chaotic, and bifurcating time. So I think it's a great document to that end as well.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Okay, take good care and have fun in Berkeley tonight.
Right, thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so that's Johanna Demetrakas, the director of Crazy Wisdom, a film about the life and times of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. So that was good, don't you think? I thought it was a good interview. Got into it. It's always hard, to interview somebody who's like really super close to their material, because I didn't want to press too hard. The whole drinking and sex thing is kind of a red flag, but I think he was running from something. I think he was running from something in his past. And as I mentioned to her, Bhagavan Das had alluded, he told me that Trungpa had been sexually molested in the temples in Tibet. So, he's probably dealing with his own issues around things like that and running from them as well. So it's got to be hard, too. I mean, you're supposed to be this enlightened, aware, awake, and alive guy, and I'm sure he was. And yet, the demon inside, which he could not necessarily control or tame or expose. So it's a good film, though. I do recommend it. It's a beautiful film, really well done, high quality. And you'll get some insight into this particular man, this particular era, this particular time in America. Okay, so now we are shifting gears. Hopefully we don't grind the gears, but we're going to be shifting gears here. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to be playing my interview that took place last night with Jay Widner, and it's a good interview. I'll set the stage. Jay was at home, just got home from his new gig where he's starting an alternative sort of TV web network. So it sounds very exciting for him. Sounds like a lot of his financial issues are going to be kind of solved by his involvement in this, and maybe some really good information will come out. Well, we need it. We need it now because we are hurtling towards some very intense times. And, these cardinal points that have been lining up around the chart with Moon in Cancer, and then Mars in Libra, Pluto in Capricorn, and Uranus in Aries, this cardinal cross are points of initiation and gateways. And we just entered into a gateway at midnight last night. Really, the gateway started earlier in the week when Assad's brother-in-law and the defense minister and some others were blown up with what's supposed to be a thermobaric weapon in Syria. And then we had of course, the quote-unquote bomb blast in Bulgaria, and now the Aurora event, the Dark Night Rising event. And I talked to Jay about the Dark Night. It's interesting. All the stuff that we are about to experience, Jay and I talked about last night. And it's not necessarily a really pleasant kind of portent, as we're beginning to see. And we're just, we're getting ready to look at the London Olympics. I mean, they're looming. They are like the golem in the room right now, is the London Olympics. I just read something today where they might even think of canceling the London Olympics, because if they do, they would receive $4.2 billion in insurance. Think about that. I mean, could the London Olympics just be a big insurance scam? I mean, that's, it's mind-blowing, but how much should they make off the World Trade Center? Right? It's being floated out there right now in the media. That's all I can tell you. In any event, we're staring it down. It's coming. It's coming in 7 days. 7 days. So the event in Aurora happened at midnight, which would have made it almost exactly 7 days until the start of the opening ceremony in London, 27th of this month. So here we go, folks. One of the things if there's anything you can take from Buddhism, there's a few things. If there's anything you can take from Buddhism, it's detachment. If you can be detached and view these things kind of as they are, you can have a very different perspective. And the problem is that we've been so conditioned to be emotional. It's like, oh my God, these people, the families, da-da-da-da-da. And, that's true. I mean, if that's the case, it's true. And it's a really fucked up thing for them. I got to tell you, it is a fucked up thing that this has happened, right? But I got into this with George Norrie a little bit a week ago, Monday, and we talked about Joplin, Missouri, and how this event happens and everybody pours their heart out and they pour their guts out, and they're missing the story because they're so involved in their emotional reaction. And I think we've got to dial back on the emotion just a bit. Now, the problem is that if we dial back too much, well, guess what? We become psychopaths. We become so inured to the violence because we're trying to sit back and really see things as they occur, then that potentially nothing can impact us. And that in and of itself is a form of entrainment. So we've got to be really careful. It's a fine line between being so detached we don't give a shit to being kind of in that sweet spot, in that moment where we can respond emotionally if we need to, but we can also come from a place of objectivity, analysis if we need to. And that's, to me, this is the whole concept of wholeness. That the whole being can move in any state that they need to, and to get beyond the conditioning of the moment in order to get to that place, or to be at that place. Not even get there, you don't have to go anywhere, you have to be there. So these are spiritual practices now for us. When these events happen, these are spiritual practices. What do you do with it? Do you just sink into, oh my God, isn't that terrible? Please, just put a chip on everybody so nobody gets hurt and take away all the guns. I mean, do you resort to that when that happens, or do you go in the other direction? Oh, it's just all bullshit. Oh, it's just all a ritual. Blah, 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 blah. This is grand conspiracy. Why don't you people wake up? I mean, there may be some truth to that, but we got to be sensitive on some level without being overly sensitive and being played. I think that's the big piece here. It's a huge piece. All right, somebody wants to call in. I'm going to play the Jay Widner interview. It's an hour long. Okay, it's an hour and 6 minutes. I want to be very aware of the time. So I'm going to answer this call, and I've only got a few minutes for the call, and then we're going to get into Jay. Hi. Thanks for calling in. Hello.
Me?
Yeah,
I'm just listening.
Okay.
Hi, Tarika. How are you?
Hi there. Yeah, I never know. I don't have anybody screening my call, so it's just like, whatever comes up. So.
Okay, I just dialed in, so I wanted to see if you had any insight on the Colorado tragedy. I'm just so broken up about that. It's just horrible.
Yeah, I've been talking about it a little bit, and
okay, I'll download it.
Yeah, so I do have some thoughts about it, and I just kind of went on a little bit of a rant about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on hold, and then I'm going to play this interview that I did with Jay Widner last night. And Jay is he's brilliant, and he's done two amazing films about the movies of Stanley Kubrick and the hidden messages in those movies. And he's already come out with his own feature film. And so we get into the dark night. We get into psychopathology. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So let me put you back on hold, and then I'll fire that up, and then maybe we can rally back at the end of the show and talk about it. All right?
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Please.
All right. So let's find Mr. Jay Widner. Okay. So this is Jay and I from last night, and here we go. Well, it is my pleasure to once again have probably the most popular guest I've ever had on the show, Mr. Jay Widner. And if you haven't heard our first interview together when we talked about Stanley Kubrick and Eyes Wide Shut, and particularly 2001, I urge you to go and find it. It's one of the best interviews I've ever done, and the information is extraordinary. And a lot of people have said that it's one of the best. Actually, Jay, this is the truth. One of the best interviews they've ever heard you do. I'm not kidding you. So let's not put too much pressure on ourselves and have such great expectations that we're going to strike lightning for a third time. But welcome and thank you for joining me and the rest of the listeners. And how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I mean, I feel kind of bad because I'm doing really good, but the world and a lot of my friends and family are not. So it's quite a dichotomy for me anyway, especially because not only am I doing pretty good, but most of my life, it's been a real struggle for me. So it's like about 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, I started getting noticed by people who had the financial backing to actually help me try to get some of the media alchemy that I've been dreaming of doing for a long time out, and so that's actually beginning to happen in a real way. So, I'm real happy because I'm finally able to possibly, so far, it's been going correctly, to actually direct the content of a major network that will be in serious competition with things like Fox and CNN, MSNBC, some of these cable networks, but it'll be an online network.
Right. Well, that's exciting. I was watching how Microsoft and NBC have decoupled from one another with MSNBC, which says to me that this is really migrating into the online space in a big way. TV's losing viewers like crazy.
Well, yeah, HBO has if you watch HBO, which I don't very much, but they have occasionally an ad for HBO. I think it's called HBOGo.com, and that's beginnings of HBO moving away from being stiffed by the cable companies.
Yeah.
And just going and saying, F you, I'm going my way, and everybody's going to be doing this. So there's a mad scramble. It's like the Oklahoma land rush, only it's for real estate as to who's going to be online with the most credibility the fastest.
Yeah.
And everything's moving away from the cable. In 5 years, there's not going to be any magazines. There's really not going to be any books or CDs or, TV. All of it's disappearing and moving into one kind of conglomeration of this internet thing. And it's both bad and good because if we're not careful, only the very wealthy are going to be players in that final market as they scoop up all the niche markets that are emerging.
Mm-hmm.
And then and that's going to happen for sure. The vulture capitalists are flying above us and circling. And so it's quite interesting. But in the end, the only thing that matters is information, and whatever news or alternative outlet that presents the best information in the best way is the one that's going to win. So money really doesn't matter on the internet as long as it's kept free.
Right. I would agree with that. The big elephant in the room towards that end is Apple. And, what they've got up their sleeves. And I know that they've got their own version of a TV, which is going to blow the minds of a lot of people when it comes to what a TV actually is. It's going to be kind of a hybrid between a monitor and a TV. And apparently
it's not even called a TV. They're calling it the iPanel.
Yeah.
They in development and under Steve Jobs' aegis, they were calling it Apple TV, but they realize, as I have come to realize, that TV also is going to be sucked into this vortex and be transformed and changed. It will not be TV anymore. And that's a good thing because TV is really a medium that's been misused more than any other. I mean, at least radio has some classical music stations and some educational stuff going on. And, PBS is all right, but it's pretty wimpy. And TV's just really been the dream that never ever came true. It still boggles my mind that the United States government during the liberal years when we could spend money didn't go out and just put on the entire curriculum of a major university up for free,
right,
on a government-sponsored PBS-type station. And, you can get on it with internet or through the mail, whatever. And if you actually started passing the tests and things, and then you could actually even, get a degree. and maybe not a major degree like from Columbia, but a minor of some kind, proving that you had the smarts, right? You just didn't have the money.
Right.
I mean, I grew up a poor kid, and I would have, frankly, devoured something like that. I was already devouring all the books in the very chintzy local library, but if I had the complete curriculum of Columbia for my perusal, I probably would have started going through that stuff, at 8 or 9 years old. That's how curious I was. I know a lot of kids would. And so you just got to wonder, how smart these kids, some, not all, I agree, most will never do it, but a small percentage can't never afford to go to these universities would. And they would come out at 17 or 18 years old, be smart as a whip. And these are the things that I don't understand. We spend billions on weapons, and this wouldn't even cost probably more than, say, $10 million to do, and yet no one's ever done it. And it's just something I can't understand.
Yeah, well, I think that education always had a ceiling in this country. Like, you could be educated just enough, educated just enough to be able to put together a widget, educated just enough to be a middle manager, educated just enough so that you could theoretically buy enough. And I I actually think what you're talking about is pretty radical, and I would be for it, but I just don't think it fits the paradigm. I mean, I think the paradigm is about control, and that takes the paradigm into a place that's kind of out of control, which is kind of interesting and gets into this whole notion of virtual content. I mean, the physicality of all this stuff is going away. I mean, books, you're right, books are going away, magazines are going away. Pick up a newspaper and they're paper thin. CDs, forget it. TV's gone. It's like we're being sucked into another dimension, really. I mean, the physical world is going away, Jay, in a very symbolic and a very real kind of way.
Well, I think it could go that way. I also think that I think what really smart people should be doing is taking their high-tech toys and going back into the woods.
Yeah.
That's what I'm advocating. And, it's like we need to commune in a deep relationship with the natural forces and with the organic light of nature, and but also be within the 21st century, because that's you're exactly right. There won't be any of these other devices soon. And I have thousands of books. I just hauled them in a move. I just made it. Or like about 30,000 pounds of books. But even I'm beginning to wonder why I have my books. Maybe I should just go digital and just start Kindling everything and downloading everything digitally, just because it's such a big hassle to haul all these books around. But there'll still be books, and if there's ever a solar flare and it knocks out all the electronics in X class, which would knock out all the electronics, which could happen any time. Then we would be in a very serious condition akin to something like the destruction of the library at Alexandria.
Right.
So this is kind of, in some ways, pretty stupid way to go about doing business. But we can't stop it. It's already headed in the direction that it's headed, and so we just got to take that wave and surf it.
And then you would wind up being like Edward G. Robinson in Soylent Green. Remember him? He was the book. Yeah, you'd be the version of the book. Yeah,
well, and the ending, when he's watching the virtual nature.
Yeah.
This is the way it used to be, Well, it's heading that way, I mean, I'm not against immigration, but I mean, if they pass a law, and they're probably going to soon, that allows the 20 million, illegal aliens that live here to become citizens, and they become citizens. And they're each going to bring, 4 or 5 people from their family, because that's what you get to do when you're a citizen. Well, you can easily see that we're going to be up at around 500 million people very quickly.
Yeah.
And most of them poor.
Yeah.
And the stretch on our resources, if you think the resources are stretched now, wait till that happens. And so we're facing a very critical situation, which is not just, destruction of the natural environment, but the possible, worldwide suicide. And the human race doesn't seem to care anymore about anything. And I don't know what to say about that. It was foretold that near the end of the Kali Yuga, people actually wouldn't care about their children or their parents and their community or their country. When I was younger studying the Vedic text, I never dreamed I'd actually be living in such a time, and I am. So it's a shock to the system, but at the same time, we have to start thinking of ways to survive what's happening and what's about to happen, and thinking about it in the ways that smart people think, instead of letting ourselves be led by this criminal cabal that's in charge.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're Spock playing Kirk, at chess in the Enterprise, and the chessboard is, in 3 different levels, right? I mean, that's kind of where we are now. We've got to be able to, live at, in 3 different levels, in 3 different dimensions at least, to be able to, get through this time, do it elegantly, keep your heart intact, have a sense of the future, faith, keep your your day-to-day reality together. I mean, this is a very tricky time, and I think it's really bringing out. It's either going to bring out the best in a person, or it's going to really demoralize a person. And I think that's where we are right now.
And what's really bad is that in the inner cities, the fatherless children are now 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And they have a skewed vision and version of reality, because not having a father and having the masculine influence coming through various boyfriends passing through the house or through the television gives you a very skewed idea of what being a man and being masculine is.
Yeah.
And it's been proven that the most vicious soldiers in the Marines and stuff are the ones that come from fatherless families. That they're working on a lot of the issues that boys that grow up with fathers never have. And now we're reaping the first generation, and it's coming of age, and it's the gangs in the inner city are a new breed of gangster that's never been seen before. Wild, animal, and with no scruples, no morals, does not care at all if, like, a little kid gets killed or an old person gets killed. In fact, in some cases that are not being reported but are nevertheless true, kids and babies have been targeted as revenge killings.
Yeah.
And so we're really facing, the situation of one level of the Kali Yuga of chaos was the fatherless families, and then the second level is now the fatherless children coming of age with no model of or moral or idea of what appropriate behavior even is.
Yeah, and astrologically, they fall into this Pluto and Scorpio generation, who are, they can be either really light or really dark, and really not much in between. And when they indulge in darkness, it's very, very dark. It's really scorpionic and very underworld kind of activity.
I'm a witness to it. A lot of my fans are kids that just come of age, and whoa,
yeah,
it's like that is some heavy. That was that's some of the heaviest emails I get, and they are so dark and so full of demonic energy in some kind. I can't quite describe it. I'm thinking that it's coming over through the media and infecting them, because the media is sending this message that being demonic is cool, and so they think that I'm going to be impressed by their demonic attitude, and I'm not impressed at all. It's like, that's so low rent and easy to imitate that I'm not even interested in it. So.
Right, and these kids too were raised during the bulk of 9/11. After the wake of 9/11, and psychically, that's just really got to tweak them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had not thought of that. You're right.
Yeah.
They were young. They were young when they saw this thing happen, and now they're coming of age, and it's it's idealism that is just absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
And they don't have jobs on top of everything else.
That's right, and they're staring down this whole, idea that they're going to have to spend $250,000 to get an education and compete with somebody in India or China or Korea who's having their education sponsored by a state, right, and having to pay that back.
If any of those guys are listening and you're considering going to college, if you have the money, go. But my advice is to just go down to the library or get on the internet, get free Google books and things, and read all the classics and read your way through it, because I've known a lot of successful people in my life, and very successful people in my life, and none of them went to college. I don't mean they didn't try. As soon as they were out of high school, they were immediately beginning to build their successful life. And I think, I'm not saying that going to college is not a good thing, but I have to tell everybody that, in my opinion, the people that I know that have college education, the more college education they have, the more they seem trapped in a kind of a establishment mind control that is the hardest thing to break through. And they seem to have got their minds closed. And so I'm not sure that college is all. I went to college, but I'm not sure college is really all that much of a ladder to success anymore, unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer.
Right, absolutely. And I was thinking, if you are a kid that's going into college and you are going to spend $150,000 or $200,000 or take a loan out for it, you're not going to go out and get a degree in the letters. You're not going to study literature. You're not going to study creative writing or cultural anthropology unless you want to be a professor. You're going to be looking at things that are going to make you money, and what are those jobs going to be in the 21st century? They're all going to be super high tech. They're all going to be nanotech or nano fusion biotech. And so what's going to happen is that you're going to have this cadre of kids going through college who are getting funneled through a system that is becoming more narrowly defined by the dominant paradigm, which I think is really, morphing very rapidly towards this whole transhumanist trip. And college is now going to become a transhumanist sort of magnet for these jobs that will pay. I mean, I think that's where that's going, and that's how, we're being conditioned. It's money that's going to be driving choices, and the arts are going to be just an absolute luxury.
Well, yeah, they already are. That's right. But, at the same time, as I often advocate, we have to leave that system behind.
Yeah.
Especially the transhumanist agenda. And we don't want to be transhumanists. We want to be more human than we are.
Yeah.
And what we really want, what's deep in our hearts, of course, is the connection back to community and to local commerce. And that's coming because oil prices will dictate it. But I say we have to start doing that now. And I highly advocate, a removal out to the country with your friends and family that feel the same way that you do. Don't move in with a bunch of people that you don't agree with. And begin learning how to grow your own food, but keep your connection with the internet and things. And don't lose that. And begin to influence things on that kind of level. And, build a deeply spiritual life, and close to nature and away from the transhumanist agenda, because what they have planned, what they're probably doing to us via chemtrails and things, is they're actually trying to guide the evolution of the human race.
Yeah.
And that is such an outrageous, archonic idea that it's beyond criminal.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things we were going to talk about was the Olympics, and this may be a good jumping off point. but I'm not sure how much you've been following the story of Oscar Pistorius, who is the 400-meter runner from Brazil, who had been denied entrance into the last Olympics, which was China, and in this Olympics, the IOC has decided to let him run. He has no legs from his knees down, right? He's really the first transhumanist participant in the Olympics, and you'll love this. His nickname is Blade Runner.
Yeah, he'll probably win.
Well, he's part of the relay team, but it was really funny because yesterday I saw this story on him, and now supposedly he's involved with this world-class Russian model. So not only is he in the Olympics, but boy, he's really, he's doing great with the blonde Russian android model.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I heard vaguely the story that he's in, and that the other runners are complaining because they think he has an advantage, and he probably does have an advantage. You probably see guys who soon cutting off their legs, getting attachments on, so they pick their speed up by 5%. Hey, I'm not kidding. I'm actually telling you the truth. You will see this. And if this happens, if they allow this, then why not that? Why not some kind of cyborg feat?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That's where it's going.
Yeah, they've opened the gateway. I want to go back to the Olympics, but I really wanted to get your take on some of these new films we've been inundated with superhero celluloid, Avengers, and we've had the new Spider-Man, and of course the Dark Knight. And you've got some pretty interesting. I haven't seen the Dark Knight, so I can't really comment on it, but you've got some pretty interesting thoughts on that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. I plan on seeing it. It's interesting. What's interesting about it is that there's two interesting things going on here. One has to do with Ridley Scott's Prometheus,
right,
and the other has to do with Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight Rises. And they're both kind of, I think, similar. And I'm not trying to take over a lot of credit here, because it's not. I'm just a facilitator for whatever it is that Stanley was putting into his films. So what I did, of course, is I deconstructed with my two films, which are both on special at sacredmysteries.com right now. You get both of them for half price. What I did with that was I deconstructed Stanley Kubrick's work, and I showed that he had built a kind of a secret story or secret stories into his films that you had to decipher, and that there's a lot more than just what I found. There's a lot more, and so when my films came out, I knew that everybody in the film world was watching them because I was getting emails from a lot of people, and it was the kind of the thing that everybody in Hollywood and beyond was doing, was watching my two movies about Stanley Kubrick. And then I heard a rumor that Ridley Scott said that he wanted to make a movie that lived forever. This was after my Kubrick's Odyssey stuff came out, and before Prometheus was finished. But then I saw Prometheus, and I realized that it was a remake of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and two, it had so much stuff thrown in, actually way too much. Ridley should have edited it a little bit. Stuff thrown in that was of a secret message, occult nature, that there was no way that I could even decipher it without 20 viewings. So I realized at that point, I saw Prometheus, that the filmmaker, at least one, Ridley Scott, had changed the way that he did films. And now he was doing films, i.e., doing what Kubrick was doing that he never saw before until after my stuff came out. And he wants to be remembered. And so he made Prometheus as a film to be deciphered, i.e., to be remembered. Okay, so then I heard a rumor from someone who has seen The Dark Knight Rises, was working on the post of it, and he said, A, Christopher Nolan is an absolute Stanley Kubrick fanatic and thinks that he is the next Stanley Kubrick. Two, he had seen my stuff. Three, The movie is opening on July 20th, just a couple days from now, which is or tomorrow, which is exactly 13 years to the day that Eyes Wide Shut opened, and exactly 53 years, no, not 53 years, 43 years since the Apollo moon landing, Apollo 11 landed. And I've heard that the symbology and the stuff that he stuck into the movie is so right up my alley that I'm going to, that my hair is going to stand up on the back of my neck when I see the movie. So that's all I know. And I've heard about the plot, and, it does seem like it's about my warnings about, what's going to happen when, say, inflation gets so bad that food stamps aren't buying anybody any food. What will happen? Of course, I have extrapolated on this in public, my fears for the crumbling society and what I'm advising people to do. And it's starting to possibly move out into the culture, which I think I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. But, there's no way that Christopher Nolan can be making a $300 million movie without the financial backing of powerful people. So if he did slip stuff in, they didn't see it.
Yeah, and it's always a fine line between sort of the hidden in plain sight stuff, which is maybe they're contractually obliged to put into the film, and also their own imprimatur, where somebody like a Jay Widner can, pluck that out and lionize them and be their kind of biographer in some ways.
Yeah, the director, this is an old trick in Hollywood. I think Oliver Stone probably did it in JFK, where you present a script to the financial people, and then you have your own script.
Right.
And your script is vastly different, And that can happen, believe me, I've seen it. Because a lot of times you just want to close sets, so you don't want anybody on the set, so nobody can really see what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. Besides, even if you have an open set, no one can figure out what you're doing anyway, because it takes 2 or 3 hours to get, one 10-second scene.
Right.
So, so if it's all really, when you're on a set, it's just really boring.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Yeah. Movies are kind of like the Manhattan Project, too. You got all these different parts.
Yep.
And then they get assembled in the editing room.
Yeah, well, I just am finishing up my first feature film in about 32 years ago. I made my first feature film, so this is really my second feature film. And I'm just finishing it up right now. It'll be out in a couple of months, I hope. It's called Shasta, and it's about the emergence of Kalki Avatar, who is rumored to come at the end of time, destroy the purveyors of lies.
Uh-huh. It's funny. We were just talking about Kalki a couple weekends ago in the Gore Vidal novel. And,
right.
Yeah. Do you want to expound on that a little bit, Kalki?
Yeah, Kalki is, of course, is the Vedic prophecy that says that a Caucasian, you actually describe him as a Caucasian male will come. He's the male version of Kali, and he will come at the end of time and begin the preparation for the final destruction by Kali.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was making this film about, because Kalki had never come, and I've been waiting a long time. I decided I would just make him come in a movie, and then I realized, how do you destroy the Illuminati, without firing a shot or doing anything violent?
Right.
And that became the hurdle that I had to overcome. And I reshot, various parts of the movie like 4 or 5 times as they tried to overcome the hurdle of how to do this non-violently. I think I did it, so I'll leave it to people to see if it succeeded or not.
So
it's a Hollywood type of film.
So when can people expect that?
Well, it'll be going out to people that are on my people that are signed up at my website to get emails. Will be the first ones to get a special edition of it, and then I'm going to open it in theaters at least 2 or 3 cities, if not 5 or 6. I've done focus groups, and people seem to really like the film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very uplifting. And so, you know, I'm going to open it like a regular movie and see if I can spread it to Los Angeles and New York and the whole thing. I don't know, I think it's too wacky and too spiritual and too conspiracy for your average person, but I think, you know, the audience that listens to this show would definitely like it.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think the meter is getting turned up a little bit on people who are becoming more open to this kind of material. I mean, a lot of people, I just run across a lot of people that are waking up, Jay. And this whole idea or theory that people are asleep, you know, I don't buy that. I just don't buy that. I'm on the internet all the time. I'm talking with people through my show, through my blog. I go to comments pages on websites. You go to Yahoo, and there's a story about this bomb that went off in the bus in Bulgaria, and 8 out of every 10 comments are basically saying it's a false flag. Oh, here goes Israel again. Oh, the Mossad are at it. And, you know, 10 years ago, those comments weren't showing up.
They weren't showing up 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This has been real interesting. I mean, well, Israel's blowing it, and the Zionists are blowing it. They really are going to cause a terrible retribution, and I'm really hoping it doesn't happen. Just, you know, I just don't know. I mean, it just seems like they're an endless war. So that's the goal, and the goal for the whole thing. And I just wish, you know, they would just go back to living in Israel and minding their own business. And if honestly, I really believe this. If Iran wants to have a nuclear power plant, why can't they? Israel's got 300 nuclear missiles, and nobody says a word. They're not signed up to the International Nuclear Arms Treaty or anything.
Right.
So it's like it's a total double standard, and I'm actually really sick of it. I mean, like, I'm really sick of it. And so if they're getting blamed for false flags, even if they're not theirs, well, what do they expect?
Right.
You know? It's like, dude, that's just going to happen to you. You start playing games like that.
Right.
Other people can play games too, and then you get blamed for everything. Right. That's what's going to happen, and that is what's happening.
Yeah.
Other groups, psychopathic behavior is contagious. So you do something psychopathic. A false flag operation is the primary psychopathic thing that you can do, is to actually do something and kill people without any regard in order to achieve a political end of some kind.
Right.
And then to blame it on somebody who's innocent. So it's really worse. You're not just killing people. You're actually making sure that innocent people are blamed for what you did. So it's a double thing.
It is.
And so there's really cowardly also. And an act without honor. And so other people see this, they learn it, now they start doing it. Not them, not the original false flag guys, other ones. And now, what do we got? We got 10 or 15 rogue false flag operations going. And the original group, the Zionists, are the ones being blamed for it, even though they're probably, in some cases, not responsible anymore.
Right.
Because what you do with these things is you initiate chaos. And it's not chaos that can be later controlled. It's chaos that goes out of control continuously.
Yeah.
Look at the results of the 9/11 false flag. Is there control? No, there's no control. Everything's in worse chaos than ever.
Yeah, it's true. Absolutely true.
Because they have not read the Tao Te Ching. They do not understand the nature of what we are. And, you know, they should. Dick Cheney should sit down and read it.
So this whole concept of psychopathology as a virus is quite interesting, actually.
It is. It's one of my favorite subjects, actually. And I see it happen. And I've seen it happen to me. That's how I know. I've had psychopathic actions against me. Things that, you know, make your jaw drop, you go completely pale, and all the blood drains out because you cannot believe you just had somebody do this thing to you. And, you know, you go through the whole thing, you blame yourself, and you know, why I'm a fool for having dealt with this person. But then after a while, you start thinking, hey, you know, I can do that to him.
Right.
And then your mind begins coming up with psychopathic reactions. And that's what I'm talking about. It's a contagion.
It is.
Or in another incident later on downstream, you then mirror the previous psychopathic action done to you against someone else, and now you've perpetuated this thing, and the contagion grows and continues.
It reminds me of that film Fallen with Denzel Washington.
Yeah, it is a lot like that. It transfers from person to person, and you can't. And the evil grows, and that's what the false flag is going to do. It's going to create a world of false flags where everybody's just false flagging. It's sort of like Brazil. Remember all the bombs going off without cause or reason?
Yeah.
In the movie Brazil?
Yeah.
That's where we're headed.
It feels that way. That there's just this domino effect of chaos that gets set into motion. So is psychopathology as a virus, is it non-local, Jay? I mean, is it something that's invasive and not of this world, or what's the roots of that virus?
Well, I mean, I believe the roots are this archonic invasion, this kind of virus that invaded the Earth, off-planet virus, which it gets in us, and I'm not sure if it's how it got here or anything. I just know it's here, and the Gnostics talked about it. It could be related to the sun somehow, and when the sun changes, the virus grows or gets worse. It seems somehow related to the deforestation of the planet. In other words, as the virus grew, the deforestation of the planet grew, and I don't know. The deforestation, I don't know if it was caused solely by man or if it's by solar influences. I suspect it's the latter. We just know that if you looked at an outer space, satellite of the Earth through the last 6,000 years, you would see it going from an incredibly green place to a place that's almost half brown now, without any growth. The deserts are growing really quickly, and I think it's somehow related to this psychopathological condition, and it's some kind of virus that is taken over us. It is associated with dryness and the loss of wetness and the loss of, which is compassion, and you cry when you're sad or when you're really happy, and that's wetness. And wetness and water are directly associated with your emotional states, and we're turning into like a dry species. We're losing our sense of humor, we're losing our sense of compassion and love and community, and as the earth dries up, we dry up, and we become psychopathological. And this is what drives to succeed in a major corporation. You have to be a psychopath.
Yeah.
That is just, you have to be. And people that are succeeding in corporations who are listening to me and bristling, don't bristle at me, man. Go check yourself out, that's all I gotta say. Maybe you've been lucky enough to crawl up to the top somehow without having to stab your brothers and sisters, but I have yet to see this.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the person that starts the business. They can be just an entrepreneur. I'm talking about a giant corporation where there's a pyramid thing going, and everyone is scrambling for the top place.
Yeah.
In that kind of situation, believe me, the guy at the top is the most psychopathological, and as you stream downwards, you go least psychological.
Yeah,
psychopathological.
It's the rules of engagement, and if you're not abiding by the rules of engagement, you're going to be history killed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's a contact sport, and if you think that athletes playing football actually care about that guy they're playing against, you're wrong. They don't care at all. They want to kill the guy.
Yeah,
and that's the way it is in the corporate world. It's just the way it is, it's maybe it's just the carnivore gone mad, the hunter who cannot hunt, trapped in a building. The mind forced into devising some kind of other kind of schemes for survival. I don't know. But it's dangerous.
Yeah, be disconnected from the wild within. I mean, I think that certainly is part of it. And this goes back to your whole notion of the rejection of nature, too.
It is. It's all the same. Psychopaths generally, there's ways to find out if a person is a psychopath. Psychopath absolutely really doesn't care about nature at all, and would not take a hike in the woods if you caught them dead. They just wouldn't do it. And, psychopaths can't apologize. Not really. They give kind of half-hearted apologies. They're actually apologies for someone else's behavior in most cases. But they can't really ever sincerely apologize because they never did anything wrong. No matter what, that's how they do it. They can walk through the world and think they're invisible and that they never did anything wrong when they did this or that or this or that. It wasn't them that did it. It was the victim that did it, that caused it.
Right.
In some cases, it's true because the victim allows it to happen.
That's true. It's absolutely true. Do you think that this whole idea of the psychopathology as a virus was what Ridley Scott was talking about in some ways in Prometheus? I do. I think it's exactly what he's talking about. It appears that the Archon, the Archons, his version of it is, which is a really bizarre version, is that the Archons, the progenitor race, I'll just call them that, created us, and then came back 2,000 years ago, sent one of their own in to check us out, and we killed him. Of course, that's Jesus, I guess. I mean, he doesn't really say, but it's like I'm trying to figure out, what's going on here, and I can only conclude that he's talking about Jesus, so he must be a heavily Christian person, which I never knew before. And so now they hate us and they're against us. So that's kind of what that plot is about. And so I have a funny feeling that, and I've seen it twice, and I liked it better the second time. I have a funny feeling it's one of those movies that, like, maybe the seventh time you see it, you're actually really going to like it. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a pretty deep film.
Well, they had two different script writers for that. They had they brought in J.J. Abrams, right-hand guy from Lost, who was called in to save most of that script, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's a whole kind of J.J. Abrams Lost imprint that movie has on it.
Well, I'm not going to say anything against J.J. because he was the editor of Wired magazine, the guest editor, and chose me to be interviewed for. So I'm not going to. You're not going to get me to say anything bad about J.J.
All right. Let's move on quickly to something pretty immediate and pretty scary, and what's going down in Syria. And
right.
I mean, you've got Assad just literally fighting for his life now, not just his country's life, but his life, because he knows that there is no real surrender. He saw what happened to Mubarak, and he saw what happened to the Shah of Iran, and he saw what happened to Gaddafi. I mean, once you're out, you're done. I mean, you are done. It's either some fake operation, or we'll take you out with a drone, or whatever that is. So he's fighting for his life. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen in Syria? It's such a hot spot right now.
Well, I think it's the same thing that happened everywhere else. It's a changing of the management. I think you have to understand that's pretty much what's going on.
Yeah.
There was a decision to change the managers in the Middle East and Northern Africa, and this is all part of it. It's just a management shift. It'll go on. Jordan will have a manager shift, and it'll look like some kind of radical Muslim force is coming in, but they're already controlled by the I guess you call it the triad, which would be Britain, United States, and Israel.
Right.
And they're all false flag operations. We all know it. Come on.
Yeah.
It's like we know what's going on. We know who's funding the rebels in Syria. Same ones that funded the rebels in Libya and Tunisia and in Egypt. And and I knew the Muslim Brotherhood was going to get in. I warned everybody that this incredibly radical group was going to take over Egypt. So why would the triad want radical Muslims in charge of all these countries that are actually in some ways the most moderate of Arab-speaking countries, right? Egypt was, and Libya had women's rights.
Yep.
So did Saddam had women's rights.
Yep.
Women don't have to wear veils, and every place we're putting in these kind of radical. Why would we be doing that? And the answer is, well, it's pretty easy. because Islam's been chosen as the next world religion.
Yeah.
And they realized that their Marxist ideology had to be tweaked, and they really they had to reject this idea that religion was to be rejected. And they tried it in Russia, they tried it in China, and it didn't work. And so Leo Strauss came in and said, hey, we got to tweak the ideology. We really do need a religion. But it couldn't be Christianity, because Christianity's religion was such a screwy religion, preaching about the redeemed Messiah coming and believing that the Son of God walked on earth, and it just didn't pass the muster for total deception. Which is too obvious that it was a deception, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That they went to Islam, and I believe Islam was created by Freemasonic organizations going in, and possibly other things that are very interesting. And it's a completely contrived religion. I hope no radical Muslims come after me for saying any of this, but I say the same thing about Judaism and Christianity, so don't take it personal. And there's not really any religion there. The only thing that's there is a kind of a vengeful, psychopathic script of how to behave in a really crazy way. And so I'm not against Islam, and I understand the devotion and everything and all that, and I like Sufism a lot, but I don't want those people anywhere near me. I don't want their religion anywhere near me. I'm sorry if I sound intolerant. I just don't. I know, I've seen it up close, and it doesn't make me happy.
Mm. Well, it seems like, if anything, it's a series of principles, more than it is something ecstatic or transcendent. You know what I mean? It's like it's.
I do.
Yeah.
And, all the Western religions are void of that which is really spiritual, and that's why I have rejected them all, because once you get into something like Taoism or a deep, like a Tibetan Buddhism or some deep Eastern tradition that is filled with real answers and real ways to deal with life on this planet. And the other ones are just belief systems and BS systems designed just to get you sucked into a mind control. It's so obvious that all three of them were created to mind control their populations, whoever they would be.
There seems to be.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sound offensive to people. I respect your religion, but I just, that's the way I am.
There also seems to be kind of a, you can see this with Judaism, and you can certainly see it with Islam as well. Kind of an OCD quality, to the, and in some instances even Christianity, with the the adherence to ritual at certain times of day in certain directions. And it's almost like this, patterning and entrainment that's based on, some, I don't know, aberrant function to try to keep madness in check. You know what I mean?
It's exactly what it is. It's like, we are insane, so we have to do this, not be insane.
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, you are insane, yes, and I'm glad you admit it. Because you worship an insane God. I'm sorry. Your God is insane, and your God is a war God, and is not the God of the real God, the one true God. It's a false God. It's a God who acts like God, but only in some ways. And so, in the end, I've kind of just had to reject the whole thing and become a good Taoist, and it's for me, it's the best thing. So, I practice my qigong, and I do my breathing exercises, and I commune with nature and try to become one with the organic light and the source, and that seems to do it for me. Yeah,
I think that there's a lot of integrity related to that. I wanted to ask you, and this maybe dovetails with the Islamic piece. I was talking with somebody about obelisks the other day, and the power of the obelisk. And of course, Kubrick made that very clear in 2001 with the obelisk, especially the obelisk on the moon. And in the Olympics, I don't know if you've seen this, Jay, but Danny Boyle is directing the opening ceremonies and part of the opening ceremonies is this, I don't know, this creation of Blake's Dark Satanic Mills, and in the center of the Olympic Stadium is a giant circle, which I believe represents the world, and through the center of that circle, there's like a serpentine path, which looks to me like the world serpent, which theoretically could be a giant ley line running right through the planet. And on one side of that serpentine path is a giant smokestack, which is supposed to be a symbol of the industrial age of England. And then kind of at about a 40-degree angle is what looks to me like the Black Madonna. But really that smokestack is an obelisk. That's exactly what it is. And you're going to have all these athletes, the world's premier athletes, circumnavigating this dark satanic mill and walking right past that obelisk and potentially past this Black Madonna. What's the obelisk all about, Jay? What is the symbol of the obelisk, and why is it so pervasive in this ritual theater?
Well, it's the whole idea behind the thing is that the same thing as the cathedrals or the pyramids is that you're drawing down telluric forces, which are like electromagnetic higher dimensional forces that surround the Earth, and you're drawing them down into that locality. And the obelisk is drawing down particularly the phallic male energy of it, and so what they're doing there, and what they're doing always in their ritual magic, is drawing down this kind of force, and this force is attracted to certain kinds of stone and certain kinds of material more than others, and it's drawn down until it touches or greets the Earth's energy, which is coming up from the ground. And so there's this energy coming up down from the sky, which is the telluric energy, and then there's this energy that's coming up from the Earth. And the obelisk forces or the cathedral or the pyramid forces those forces, presses those two forces together to create like a interdimensional energy that flows into the area, an energy that actually can be controlled by sound. So you would always include a kind of a chanting or music with this thing. It can either be used for good or bad.
Right.
And it's neither nor. It's just like the energy. It's like plugging an electrical cord into the wall. It has nothing. You could plug it into a machine and commit suicide, or you can plug it into a machine and play guitar. And so it's not really the energy that's doing it. But the question is, okay, what are they doing? And it seems to me that this is really maybe this isn't a bad thing. Maybe it's and Christians will probably think it's a bad thing, and Muslims will think it's a bad thing. But it could be the re-paganization of Europe, which I, for a while, have thought is actually going on. And the final rejection of the Christian values that were foisted on them and a return back to the values that they had before. Unfortunately, the immigration laws have changed Europe's face so much that pretty soon Europe's going to be completely Muslim, probably in about 30 years, it looks like.
Yeah.
And so it won't matter if there's a pagan revival at all, because the forces of a much crueler religion are coming.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. I was thinking, would this obelisk be somehow connected to the energy of all these athletes? These world-class athletes walking past and parading past that obelisk. What would be
they could be drawing off all that nice youthful chi, for sure. They're like nothing more than that. All these old cretins sitting up in the high seats, in their nice chairs, soaking up all the chi of these guys by this gigantic ritual that only they are aware of. Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah. That was my thought.
I think every Olympics is now a ritual of some magical occult group.
Yeah.
the Chinese were, these Olympics, or really are the Zion Olympics. So it's kind of amazing how blatant it is.
Yeah, and looking back on it now, as I remember in my mind's eye this whole setup that Danny Boyle has created with, Satan's dark satanic mills. And I thought as I looked at it, it looked like there were all these, it looked like a bombed out version of the Earth. That's what it looked like, from above. And then I thought about it a little more, and I thought, well, maybe that's really not the Earth. Maybe that's a black sun, because it's all a black background or foundation with what looks like girders and beams strewn all across the surface. That's really ugly, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the whole thing has been ugly. There isn't anything nice about what they're doing. It's just really.
What's that about? I mean, aesthetically, it's really a poke in the eye.
It is. It's like the people. It's these occultists, and they're not hiding it anymore. They know it. They're not. They're not hiding it anymore. It's going to get weirder and weirder as more of them come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't hide it. We know who they are. We know what they are. Same guys that did 9/11, 7 years and 7 days later did the market crash. The same guys in the same neighborhood.
7 years and 7 days later. 7 years
and 7 days later, maybe 7 minutes. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe it was, they got it down to something like that.
Right.
And that's a fact. It was September 18th, 2008 that this happened. That's when it started happening. That's when the overseas markets began tanking and everything began going, and the banks didn't have any more money.
Yeah.
And the whole paradigm of the scheme began crashing. The same guys that did not get marked and made off with all the money, the same guys who offices got hit by the airplanes and who owned the insurance companies and who owned the real estate, all those guys are the same exact guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the same neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
It's astonishing when you start thinking about it.
So my question is, whatever happened to Paulson? There was Paulson and Bernanke, and you haven't seen Paulson since then. And there are rumors, by the way, that he was a clone and that he'd actually been killed. Have you heard these things?
No, I believe.
Yeah. And they haven't seen him since then. It's like they trotted him out there, and then no more Paulson.
There's other. There's at least 2 Barack Obamas.
Yeah.
I can say at least 2.
Yeah.
One has head scars.
Yes.
And which looks like he's been operated on with having a surgery to the brain.
Yeah.
And the other one doesn't. And also his, you can tell the difference is one has tiny more gray hair than the other. And it's bizarre. There's more than one Barack Obama, I swear to God. I don't know what to say.
well, there's more than one Hillary, too, because in 2008, when she was running for president, she was spotted in Manhattan simultaneously at different places. No,
I know that I've heard that before from Patty Murray of Washington State.
Yeah.
Has also been seen. I lived in Seattle a few years ago, and she was running for Senate. I know for certain because I was running a radio thing, and I know for certain that she was in 2 cities that were across the state from each other at the same time, the same event at 1 in the afternoon. I have no doubt. 2 different reporters tell me. I was like, what?
And and on the surface, she does not seem like that important of a person to have clones. Am I right, or am I wrong?
No. Anybody in the Senate has probably been groomed. That's when I was on Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory. He and I went to lunch, and he told me the whole story of his first day when he was governor, and he won, of course, as a surprise, and with 38% of the vote. And he was sitting at his governor's desk for about 5 minutes, and I'm thinking this is the coolest thing he's ever done. I'm the governor of the state, wow. And all of a sudden the door opens, and some guy that he doesn't know introduces himself as his new aide and says that there's some people waiting for you downstairs. They go down to the basement of the Capitol in Minnesota, and there's about 50, 60 people in a big bunch of put together card tables. There's a postman, there's a bank teller, a woman he recognizes in the bank that he goes to, and then There's, a guy that pumps gas and is a mechanic, and there's, this and that. And he's like, well, who are you guys? And, we're the CIA. And he says, you guys have everyday jobs? He goes, yeah. And we want to know who you are. And so he's proceeded to spend the entire day getting a debriefing by these regular citizens.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That
is absolutely crazy. It doesn't surprise me, though.
Nope. That's how it is. That's how they've done it.
Yeah.
Once you have the money and you're in control of money, you can do anything.
Yeah.
You're just printing it up. You can hire anybody to do anything.
Yeah.
You can confront companies to run anything you want. Never get caught. It's all it takes is money. So that's why the whole key to undercutting the criminal cabal is to change the money supply and get rid of how we're doing money. How we're going to do that, I don't know. I just know that's how we're going to do it.
No, it's got to happen. Somebody asked me that, and I said, well, they said, well, what would happen if the financial system collapsed? And I said, well, I don't necessarily think that would be a bad thing, but as long as that there were competing systems, like there's the one system theoretically that would be one currency, the global currency, the card, the chip, whatever. I mean, that thing is minted and ready to go, when this collapses. And there may be an intermediary stage to kind of get people used to it, and then there's like the hardcore stage. But if there was something else that could compete with that, like an outside system based on what Kennedy was trying to do with silver or something like that, I mean, that could be interesting. Now all of a sudden there's competing systems versus this one size fits all, totally trackable system. But unless there is, 2 or 3 potential competing systems for the collapse, and I think it could get really sketchy, to be honest with you. And this goes back to what you were talking about with these kids in the inner city. And by the way, I've seen those videos. I've seen those hip hop videos, and these guys are just they're a whole different breed. And if things go tilt, it could get really ugly and weird. With a certain portion of our society, which has absolutely no respect for any kind of order versus law or order at all.
Well, that's exactly right. Although I tell you, from the kids I've seen, I'm not too worried about them. They will all kill each other before they get outside of their own neighborhoods. They're not smart enough to create much. No offense, guys, but go read a book. So, hey, how long are we going to be doing the interview for?
We're done. I think we're done.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jay.
Hey, yeah, thanks, man. That was a really good interview.
I appreciate that. It's always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Widner. Jay, where can they find you again?
Yeah, you can get my articles up at Jay Widner, JayWeidner.com, and sacredmysteries.com has my newest Kubrick film, Kubrick Odyssey 2, which is a sequel to Kubrick's Odyssey 1, and you can check out the Kalki stuff, which will be going up. The trailer will be going up, I think, tomorrow or the next day, and look for that, because I think you guys will be really entertained by it. I really do.
All right. Thanks again, Jay. Really appreciate it.
Okay, Robert. Talk to you.
That was Jay Widner, and that took place last night at about 6 o'clock. And it's interesting, we covered a lot of themes. We covered the Dark Night. Little did we know what a dark night it would be, and what a dark dawn it has turned out to be in many respects. And we have just begun to deal with the blowback from this event. Now, everything has been taking place under the 4 cardinal points of the grand cross in the sky, with starting with the moon coming into Cancer, and then opposing Pluto, Mars opposing Uranus, and this is where it all began to take shape. And cardinal points are initiatory points, by the way. So these aren't fixed. Some of the fixed energy comes into play in August with Leo. What's interesting, I got a little bit of a text from Melody Scott Zindel prior to the show, who lives in Colorado, who's been a guest on the show a couple times, and she's been running charts all week based on sort of the inevitability of something like this happening. And one of the things that she talked about in her text. And something that I have been talking about as well is this connection between Mercury retrograde Leo and children. And apparently some of the dead of the shooting were children. One apparently was a 6-month-old, or it's not dead, or at least mortally wounded. When you see the headline on Yahoo and you see the images associated with the headline, what are you seeing? You're seeing kids. So Mercury retrograde Leo, again, this, I haven't done the numbers. This is all very, new stuff, but it harkens back to things like Columbine, and it's a total Mercury retrograde revisitation with Columbine and some of the other shootings. The guy apparently who did the shooting was 24 years old, and in my estimation is still kind of a kid. So we've got a lot of road ahead of us. Mitt Romney is pounding on the dais, and he's telling everybody that this is just pure evil, and then we're going to get the gun control script from Obama and Holder. I mean, there's just this is a very, very pivotal time, very pivotal time. And I'm not sure, what we can do on a kind of a proactive level. I'm not sure what we can do in terms of writing to your congressman or protesting. I don't think that those things are very effective. They're just not. And I mean, we can look at, and that's not to say that you can't do those things, because it's human nature. But if you look at some of the pictures or footage of hundreds and thousands of people protesting around the world, and none of it making it to the mainstream media, on some level, it kind of invalidates it on some level. On another level, on an energetic level, it doesn't. But on a evidence-based material, it kind of invalidates it. So, and the other thing too with these events, again, and I talked about this a little earlier, is that if we begin to look at them didactically, or begin to dissect them really early on, what does that make us look like? That makes us look cold. That makes us look calculating and indifferent, detached. So, it's a very ginger and tender sort of approach that we need to take with these events. But at the same time, we also have to look at them for what they are. And I guarantee you, what you're going to see this rights versus freedom debate and topic just get hammered out. And we're going to see a call for more security. By the way, last year, the NFL had already announced that they were going to have full body scanners at every NFL stadium for the upcoming season. So that's coming. That was already in the works. So get ready to see that happen, or at least the discussion and the rush for it to happen across the board. The other thing, too, with security is there is a ton of money in security, a ton of money. I mean, the amount of dollars, and I'm talking tax dollars and investment dollars that are being thrown at security is huge. It's the big industry right now. Why is it the big industry? Because nobody's making anything anymore. Well, if you don't make anything anymore, well, guess what? You got a lot of people out of work, and a lot of people have time in their hands, right? So what you have to do is you have to be able to, kind of keep track of them. And security is a great way to do it. It's a huge moneymaker. It's one of the biggest booming industries right now. And guarantee you, somebody somewhere, their eyes are just like dollar signs. You remember in those cartoons where the eyes were like they were like slot machines, and the dollar signs in the eyes just keep rolling around, like they hit the jackpot. Well, somebody somewhere is having that moment with their eyes and the dollar signs because of what happened last night in Aurora, Colorado. They're salivating over the fact that every one of their machines might be popping up somewhere in a mall or in a movie theater across America. Think about that. Somebody's going to make a huge fortune off of misfortune, and that's the way it almost always goes in this country and around the world. Okay, so it is 11:54, and we've got about 6 minutes left in the show. I apologize for the disparity in the audio at the beginning. What's going to happen is Erica is going to take the audio, and she's Erica, in addition to being a graphics wizard, is a sound mage, and she's going to tweak the audio on this. And if you don't know, these shows can be replayed here on Blog Talk and also on my YouTube channel, which is Free Association Radio. And it's there used to be another Free Association Radio, but that guy stopped doing videos, and now all my videos dominate his videos. So I think I'm the default Free Association Radio. But you can go to YouTube and you can listen to all the shows on YouTube, and you can listen to this one, and the audio will be quite better. It will be a lot better because Eric will put a magic touch to it. So there you go. If you want to hear it again or you want to pass it along, there'll be an upgraded version. Sorry about that. I don't know. Sometimes when I upload a file to Blog Talk, there can be some disparity in the sound. So it sounded good yesterday and I was recording it, but such was not the case today. But I think it got a little bit better about a quarter of the way through. Jay's a brilliant man, totally brilliant man, and respect a lot of what he does. And he's controversial. He said some pretty intense things in that interview, and you may or may not agree with him, but you certainly will have something to think about. Okay, new moon. Just go with it. Pray. I think that's it. I think that's where we are right now. Just pray. Pray for clarity. Pray for strength. Pray for guidance, and do your best to stay conscious and aware and awake as much as possible. These are the most immediate tools we have. And I think what Jay said about being with people that you get along with is really important now. And I think that we've got to have those bonds with people that we care about, that we trust, and support us, and vice versa. It's the time, and I think Saturn in Libra maybe has shown us this. The time for conflict in a relationship is over. You know who you are. You know what's important to you. You know what supports you, what feeds you, what nurtures you. So, move on it. Be with those people that support that as well. Sometimes it's hard. We have family. We don't always pick our family theoretically. I mean, maybe we do before we come here. But those relationships can be really hard. And you're yoked to them, so you have to make the best of that. But for the rest, you have a choice. So find those people and support one another. And, keep your heart alive, keep your heart open. All right. So that's it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I want to thank Johanna Demetrakas, the director of Crazy Wisdom, the film about the life of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And I want to thank Jay for taking time out of his busy world last night to chat and get caught up and get some insight into what's happening. Monday, I'll have Mark Daniels, a.k.a. Charles, on the show, and we're going to be talking about music and art, believe it or not, and the impact of art on culture and why he decided to make a CD and the impetus behind creating art. We're going to get into that with Mark, and that's a great guy. Mark is a great guy, and he's got a wonderful CD. We'll play some tracks off of it. We'll get into that on Monday. Until then, use your head and discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to the Friday Farcast. Have a great weekend. I'll see you all on Monday. Take care.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed, as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.